The last message I ever got from my father didn't even have a goodbye. It said, "You're no longer my daughter. All matters will go through my lawyer." I remember just staring at the screen, reading those words over and over again. My hands were shaking and my mouth went dry. For a moment I thought maybe it was a joke or he had sent it to the wrong person. But deep down I knew it wasn't a mistake. He meant every word. And just like that, a relationship that had survived for over 30 years ended in a single cold sentence. It wasn't like we had a big fight. There wasn't any screaming or drama. It was a quiet disagreement, something I thought we could talk through like adults. I had simply told him I wasn't comfortable funding another one of my brother's business mistakes using company money. I said I wanted a vote before we made big financial decisions like that. That's it. I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful. I just spoke up for what I believed was fair. That night I went home and made dinner like usual. I thought maybe he just needed time to cool off. But the next morning that message came through. No call. No conversation. Just a cold, legal dismissal from the man who used to hold my hand when I was scared of the dark. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped something out. It wasn't just rejection. It was betrayal. And worse, it came from the one person I thought would always stand by me. I was just 19 when my dad first mentioned the idea of starting a small business. He had the experience and I had the drive. While most of my friends were out chasing college parties and spring break, I was in our garage with a laptop, late nights and early mornings, building the foundation of what would later become our family's pride. We started small, just the two of us and a couple of loyal clients. I took care of everything from customer service to invoicing, sometimes even deliveries when no one else was available. My father handled the networking and big picture planning, but it was me keeping the engine running day to day. For years I didn't take a salary. I lived with less so we could invest more back into the business. I missed weddings, vacations, and birthdays just to make sure we stayed afloat. I remember working through the flu one Christmas Eve because a client emergency came up and Dad looked at me and said, "That's what family does. We show up." I believed him. But somewhere along the way that idea of family started to feel one-sided. My brothers were never involved in the early years. They'd visit the office once in a while, take calls from Dad, maybe drop in for a meeting or two. But when the money started coming in and the business gained traction, suddenly they were on the payroll. Suddenly they had titles, Vice President, Operations Director, without ever sweating through a single late night like I did. I pushed the bitterness down. I told myself I was being sensitive. I wanted to believe my father saw me as more than just support staff. But there were signs. Important decisions made without me. Family dinners where business talk happened and I wasn't invited. The final straw came when I stumbled across an email thread between my father, both my brothers, and our family's lawyer. They were discussing a potential transition plan, one that involved transferring my shares of the company to them quietly under the claim that I wasn't committed to the long-term vision. I remember reading it, frozen in place, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else around me. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being erased. After all the years I gave, the loyalty, the sacrifice, they were planning to cut me out of my own life's work. And they were doing it behind my back as if I didn't matter at all. I didn't go in shouting or throwing accusations. That's never been my style. I walked into the office early the next morning before anyone else arrived and waited. When my father finally walked in, I asked if we could talk in private. He looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous, but he agreed. We sat in his office, the same one where we used to brainstorm marketing ideas late into the night, the same one where he once told me I was the heart of this business. I pulled out a printout of the email thread I had found and placed it gently on his desk. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked, "Is this real?" He looked down at the paper, then back at me with a look I'll never forget. Indifferent. Like I was some stranger who had wandered in from the street. "You're too emotional," he said. "You've never understood how business works. You're making this personal and it's not. It's about what's best for the company." I felt something shift inside me right then. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just a quiet, deep ache. All those years. All that trust. And that was all I was to him? An emotional liability? I asked him one last time, "So you're really doing this? After everything?" He didn't flinch. "It's done," he said flatly. "From now on, all matters between us will go through my lawyer." And with that he stood up, walked to the door and opened it for me. Like I was just another employee being let go. Later that afternoon, while I sat alone in the parking lot trying to make sense of it all, my phone buzzed. It was from him. The same man who once called me his little partner. The message was short. You're no longer my daughter. All matters will go through my lawyer. I stared at it for a long time. My hands didn't tremble this time. I didn't cry. I just sat there absorbing the weight of it. Then I typed back 2 simple words. As you wish. I hit send. And that was it. The moment everything changed. It was the end of one chapter. And the beginning of another he never saw coming. I went home that evening in silence. No music in the car, no calls, no tears. Just silence. My mind wasn't racing, it was focused. I had given that man everything I had. My youth, my energy, my loyalty. And he discarded me like a stranger. But if he wanted me gone, I would go. Just not empty-handed. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, still untouched, and opened my laptop. I logged into our joint business account, the one that required both mine and my father's signature for any major withdrawals. Legally, I was still a co-owner. He hadn't removed me from the company documents yet. That was his mistake. I reviewed every transaction, every detail. For years, I had managed the finances while he focused on growth. I knew the system better than anyone. The moment I saw the balance, just over $2.4 million, I felt a calm settle over me. Not revenge, not anger. Just clarity. I filed a request through the bank's business service division to freeze all major transactions pending internal dispute. As co-owner, I had every right to protect company assets if there was suspicion of fraud or internal conflict. And since I had documented proof of their plan to quietly push me out, it was enough. Within hours, all large outgoing transactions were frozen. Next, I went into the payroll dashboard. We had 5 senior-level consultants, all of them my brother's friends, all of them drawing monthly salaries for doing practically nothing. I paused all pending payroll approvals. I also contacted our vendor relations portal and placed a temporary hold on automatic transfers. I didn't drain the account. I didn't steal anything. I just paused everything. Froze it. Legally and cleanly. Then came the harder part. I opened my phone and scrolled through the family group chat. That group used to be filled with birthday pictures, updates on family dinners, old jokes. I typed one short message. I've removed myself from this group. I wish you all well. Then I left. I went into my personal banking app and stopped the monthly transfers I'd been sending to my parents to cover their house taxes and utilities. For the past 7 years, I had paid for my mother's prescriptions, their landscaping, even their grocery deliveries when my father was too proud to ask for help. All of that ended in a single tap. I deleted my backup access from the company's shared drive. I logged out of every system except for the ones I still had legal rights to as co-owner. I wasn't about to stoop to their level. No drama. No name-calling. Just precise, deliberate steps to remove myself from a system that had already decided I didn't belong. And when I closed the laptop, I sat back and exhaled. Not with satisfaction. Not with relief. Just with peace. I wasn't their daughter anymore, according to him. I wasn't their business partner either. But they had no idea how much that one message had changed everything. They thought they could erase me quietly. They thought I would cry and walk away. But they forgot. This business had my fingerprints on every single brick. And now, without me, they were about to feel what it meant to lose the one person who always held it all together. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. The very next morning, the business phones started ringing off the hook. I wasn't there to answer, of course, but I could imagine the sound echoing through that cold office. Vendors were calling, demanding explanations for the sudden freeze in payments. A few key suppliers, already tired of delayed invoices, backed out immediately. No notice. No discussion. Just canceled contracts. The staff, most of whom had worked with me for years, began to panic. They were used to stability, used to getting answers, updates, support from me. Now they were left in the dark. Some were told I had stepped away from the company. Others were told nothing at all. But the truth always finds its way through the cracks. They started to whisper, started to ask questions. Why were payments frozen? Why weren't paychecks approved this month? Why was the vendor portal offline? One by one, I saw missed calls light up my phone. My oldest brother tried first. Then the middle one. Then the youngest. The same brothers who had laughed behind my back, calling me too soft for business. The same brothers who planned to shove me out like I was disposable. Now they were desperate for my voice. I didn't pick up. Not once. They tried texting next. We didn't mean for it to go this far. You're overreacting, come back and talk to Dad. Think about the company. Please. We need to fix this. But I didn't respond. Because when someone tells you they don't want you, you believe them. And when someone dares you to walk away, they don't get to beg when you do exactly that. My father didn't call. Not yet. He was too proud. Or maybe he was still convinced he could fix this without me. That was always his flaw, he underestimated me. By the third day the panic was real. Employees began to walk out. 2 of our best managers resigned. A senior supplier emailed our entire board with a notice of contract termination, citing instability and unethical behavior from company leadership. I had nothing to do with that message, but it echoed exactly what I knew would happen. Everything was unraveling fast. The people who thought they could replace me were now scrambling to cover roles they never understood. The systems I built, the relationships I maintained, they didn't run on autopilot. They ran because I made them work. And now, without me, they were watching the empire crack from the inside. And the silence they were getting from me? It was louder than any scream I could have given. On the third day, just after sunrise, I saw a missed call from my mother. For a second, my fingers hovered over the screen. I hesitated. Then I noticed the voicemail icon blinking. I pressed play and her voice filled the room, shaky, broken, and nothing like the strong woman I grew up with. He was crying. Sweetheart, please just call me. Your father, he's not himself. Your brothers are blaming each other. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. I don't know what's happening to us. Please, just talk to me. I sat there frozen, phone resting on my lap, eyes stinging but dry. That voice, it still pulled at my heart. She wasn't the one who sent the message. She wasn't the one who plotted behind my back. But she stood by and let it happen. She watched me pour my life into that business. Watched me sacrifice holidays, relationships, my own peace, and still stayed silent when I was pushed out. And now she was crying for me to come fix it. That same afternoon my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door my uncle stood there, her younger brother. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. I'm not here to choose sides, he said quietly, but your mother hasn't eaten in 2 days. He sits in the kitchen and stares at the wall. She cries at night. She keeps asking what she did wrong. His voice cracked when he added, she's still your mother. I nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. I knew he meant well. And part of me, maybe the daughter who used to run into her arms after a long day, wanted to cave, to just show up and comfort her like I always did. But something had shifted inside me. This time I had to choose myself. I wasn't doing this out of revenge. I wasn't trying to make her suffer. But healing doesn't happen when you keep bleeding for people who won't stop cutting you. My mother, for all her warmth, had stayed quiet when they shoved me out. She watched them break me and only called when the pieces stopped serving them. So I looked at my uncle and said gently but firmly, tell her I love her. Tell her I'll always be her daughter. But I'm not coming back to fix what they broke. Not this time. He didn't argue. He just nodded and left, walking slowly back to his car. When the door closed behind him, I stood in the silence. This was the part no one warned you about. The guilt. The ache. The part where choosing yourself feels like abandoning someone else. But deep down I knew. This was the only way I'd ever stop being the one everyone used and forgot. That night, after my uncle left, I couldn't sleep. The silence in my house was loud. Almost heavy. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing, and the memories started to flood in like waves I didn't ask for. I was 9 years old again, sitting at the dinner table, excited to tell everyone about the A+ I got on my science project. I'd worked so hard. I built the whole thing myself. But as soon as I started to speak, my dad cut me off and said, let your brother talk first. He's got something important to share. And that was that. My moment was gone. I sat there picking at my food, pretending it didn't sting. At 13, I remember suggesting an idea for the small shop we ran back then. I was so proud of myself, calculated the cost, even drew a little sketch. But my father looked at me and said, you're too emotional to understand business. This isn't something little girls should worry about. The words didn't come with anger. They came with a smirk. Like it was a joke. But I stopped sharing ideas after that. Then at 16, I watched him hand the keys to my older brother, telling him, One day this will all be yours. I was standing right there. I was working the same hours. Cleaning, sorting, counting stock just like the boys, maybe even more. But I didn't say anything. I'd already learned by then. Silence was safer. Over the years, the messages never changed. Don't talk back. Don't be dramatic. Let the boys handle it. Every time I asked to be heard, I was told I was being sensitive. Every time I tried to lead, I was reminded I was just the daughter. I didn't cry about it then. I swallowed it. Kept going. I told myself that one day they'd see how much I mattered. That if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, maybe I'd be accepted as equal. But now, sitting here, remembering all the times I was pushed aside, I realized something painful. Maybe they never planned to see me. Maybe they never wanted to. It wasn't just the betrayal that happened last week. It was years of quiet dismissals. Tiny cuts that added up. Smiles that weren't real. Hugs that came only when I was useful. And for the first time in my life, I let myself feel it. I let the pain come without trying to shrink it. I let the tears fall, not because I was weak but because I was finally done pretending none of it hurt. I had spent my whole life playing a part in a story where I was never meant to be the hero. But that was about to change. Without wasting a moment, I contacted my lawyer and began the process to protect myself. I filed the paperwork to remove myself as guarantor on all family loans. No more risking my name for their mistakes. It was cold but necessary. Next, I sent a formal legal notice to withdraw from the family trust. I made it clear. I was done being tied to a family that refused to respect me. The words felt heavy as I signed them, but they carried the freedom I needed. Within days, the cracks in the family business started to show. Suppliers stopped answering calls. Payments were delayed. Without my approval, payroll got stuck and panic spread through the employees like wildfire. My family realized far too late that they depended on me for keeping things running smoothly. I had been their backbone, and now that backbone was gone. The silence I once lived in had turned into chaos for them. And for the first time, I watched from the sidelines as the empire they built without me began to crumble. Days after everything began falling apart, my phone rang. The screen showed my father's name. I stared at it for a long moment, heart pounding in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. I debated ignoring it. But then I took a deep breath and answered. His voice was cold, sharp, and filled with frustration. Why are you doing this to us? You're tearing the family apart. I stayed calm even though inside I was burning. You disowned me, I said quietly. You told me all communication must be through your lawyer. I'm just honoring your request. There was a long pause. I could almost hear him catching his breath on the other end. I waited. Then the silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I heard a click. The line going dead. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. That call felt like the final curtain closing on a chapter one had hoped would be different. But it also reminded me that sometimes, the people who say they love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. And I was done being silent. It's been weeks since that final call from my father, and I've had plenty of time to think about everything that's happened. I won't lie, hurting my family, even if it was necessary, leaves a heavy weight on my heart. It's not easy to turn your back on people who were supposed to love and protect you. But I've come to understand something important. Protecting yourself is not selfish. Sometimes it's the most courageous thing you can do. I spent so many years trying to be the good daughter. The quiet one who didn't cause trouble, who worked hard behind the scenes and hoped for acknowledgement. I gave my all to the family business, sacrificed time, energy, and dreams, only to be pushed aside, ignored, and finally disowned. It was like living in an empty house where I was invisible even though I built the walls. I'm not proud of the chaos that followed when I took back control of my life in the business. The fallout was painful for everyone. But for the first time, I wasn't the one breaking. I was the one standing strong. I had to make a choice. Keep pretending everything was okay or stand up for myself even if it meant breaking the family apart. For those watching, especially women who have spent their lives caring for others and putting themselves last, I want you to hear this. Sometimes choosing peace means choosing yourself even if it breaks everything else. Your peace, your happiness, and your dignity matter. You don't owe anyone silence when they refuse to see your worth. I still love my mother even though she's caught in the middle of all this. And yes, I wish things could have been different with my father and brothers. But I have to live my truth, not their version of it. I have to build a future where I am valued and respected, not just for what I do but for who I am. This journey has been painful, but it's also been freeing. I'm learning that strength doesn't always roar. It can be quiet and steady, like the calm after a storm. And now, finally, I feel free to be myself. If my story helps even one woman find the courage to stand up for herself, then sharing it was worth every moment of pain. Because sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories.